This is House Talk with Wally and Cindy Kerr. Today's real estate podcast is presented by Chris Doak with Gateway Mortgage and Best Protect Roofing and Construction. You can catch all of the previous shows and podcasts by visiting the library of topics at wallytalkshouses.com. Let's join Wally and Cindy for this week's podcast.
Hey, welcome today. It's House Talk with Wally.
And Cindy.
Hey, hope everything is good and a Happy New Year to you.
Absolutely.
There was a lot going on there. Gosh, Cindy, I got RSV. We went to a Christmas party on a Sunday night, like December 15th, for a friend. There were a lot of people there, and I ended up getting RSV and I was in bed for a week.
Yeah, a lot of folks, there are viruses going around, and boy, a lot of people have been down, but luckily you're back at it now and feeling great.
Did I show you that article in the UK where it said that there were people lined up in hospitals and that they were diagnosing something called norovirus? Is that right? What was that called?
Norovirus.
Norovirus, and then the flu, and then COVID-19, and then RSV, which is a respiratory deal, which is what I got.
Yeah.
I think that was as bad as COVID.
I know.
It was just fever and aches and lower and upper respiratory and all that stuff. So a lot of crazy stuff, but we hope that you endured and that your holidays were good and that you're healthy and well.
That's right. We had a great trip. We talked a little bit about our trip to Toronto in December. And one of the things we didn't mention was our tour of the Casa Loma in Toronto.
Oh, yeah. We didn't talk about that on the show, did we?
That was the most interesting tour. Of course, I love history, and I kind of dragged Wally through all that. But you really enjoyed that. Just to recap, in 1903, financier Henry Palat purchased 25 lots, and he commissioned an architect to design Casa Loma, and they began construction in 1911. The house cost $3.5 million in 1911.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
I'd forgotten that.
And it took 299 workers 3 years to build it. But due to the start of World War II, the construction was halted. It had we toured the whole thing, and it had some really interesting things in it.
Well, now, wait a minute. You got to back up here. This house was 200,000 square feet.
Absolutely. It was just
unbelievable. And I'll tell you what's amazing is, so you and I were headed back to the airport from Buffalo, and we were actually trying to kill time, right? We had like 4 hours till our flight, maybe 5 hours. And you were like, well, what are we going to do? And we were trying to figure out all these places to drive across Toronto, but it's like 7 million people in Toronto, so it's a huge city.
Right.
So you find this Casa Loma, and I'm rolling my eyes because it really didn't
but
sound...
you really enjoyed it.
Well, it didn't sound that exciting, and what was weird is it was right in the middle
of Toronto.
Of an urban part of town, wasn't it?
That's right. And you mentioned 200,000 square feet, and I might put that in perspective. An acre is 43,560 square feet, and this is 200,000 square foot.
Now, it was multi-levels.
It was multi-level, and it had some, of course, we toured all of it. One of the things that's interesting is it had an oven large enough to cook an ox. It had vertical passageways for that pipe organ. Remember that pipe organ that was multi-story?
We will post a couple of pictures. So Allie is our marketing director. She's out this week, but be sure and check back, because if you've never seen the top of a pipe organ and how it functions and how many looks like horns coming out of the ceiling, it's remarkable. You'll need to check back and make sure, but we'll post those pictures at wallytalkshouses.com.
That's right. The city of Toronto finally took it over for unpaid taxes in 1930. And like we said, it's a museum. But if you're ever in that area, boy, I would recommend Casa Loma as a tour.
Yeah, we were a little bit surprised because I think the entry fee was $35 or $40 a person. And I remember right before we left telling you and saying this was so worth.
That's right.
Now, tell everybody also how he got so rich. Didn't it have to do with electricity in Canada?
Yes, he provided the electricity in Toronto. And so he was like the electric company. And so it was just a pretty amazing tour. And they used that money to upgrade and maintenance that property.
So, Cindy, we went up at least 4 or 5 levels in the castle. And we got rooftop pictures of downtown Toronto. So you'll want to go on and just take a look at those pictures because they're pretty spectacular. I think what was probably the coolest were the stables and the underground tunnel system that you had to take. But here's what was cool. It was Christmas time, right?
Right.
And so they'd taken Casa Loma and they had taken all these underground tunnels. And what did we do? Walk like a half to 3/4 of a mile to find Santa?
It seemed like
And
it.
then, well, it was at least a half a mile. And then Mrs. Santa was down there. They had it all decorated.
Kind of like a scavenger hunt, you know? It was neat.
That was very, very cool. It was a cool trip to Buffalo to go to the world's largest disco, which was a kids' benefit.
Yes.
And then we went to the charity event, and then we saw Niagara Falls. So we had we had a lot of fun on that real quick 3-day trip.
That was a lot of fun. And I guess now we should talk a little real estate. What do you think?
That's probably what our listeners are really interested in.
You know, I've been seeing so many 2024 recaps on TV of everything from music to movie stars. But Wally, talk a little bit about the housing market, the 2024 recap, and how it changed over the year. And then get out your crystal ball and tell us and the listeners a little bit about what you predict for 2025.
Okay, so let's go back a couple of years. The first time that rates hit 7% were in October of 2022, and that's when the market changed so much. The busiest month ever, the highest sales prices, was April of 2022. Then the interest rates started going up when the Fed started raising rates. October of 2022, we hit 7% rates. October of 2023, we hit 8% rates. And then for most of 2024, the rates have been around the 7% range, Cindy, give or take a little bit, right? So 2023 followed a really hot real estate market from 2020 and 2021 and 2022. So as those rates went up to 7, all those lower interest rates were really fresh in people's minds, right?
That's right.
And that just really killed.
Well, they thought about,
market.
my coworker, my neighbor, they got a 3% interest rate, and that was really tough.
Well, and what was really tough in 2023 was a lot of home sellers figured they were going to put their home on the market and get multiple offers and sell for more than listed price on a regular basis. Some listings still saw that in 2023, but far fewer because the market changed.
Yes.
2024 was a little bit better. And Cindy, I think it's just because you and I know that people do need to move at some time in their life.
Life goes on. Like I say, people have babies, people get married, people retire, life goes on. And
people pass away. People need a bigger house for a parent moving in with them. And you and I know a certain number of people will move, but to summarize 2023 and 24, we saw far fewer home sellers selling because they're married to a lower mortgage rate that they have on their home right now. If they've got a 4 or a 5, they're not really motivated to buy if rates are 6 3/4 or 7, right? And that's what we saw again in 2024. We've seen the inventory go back up to pre-pandemic levels. Now, it fell off a little at the end of the year, maybe by only about 5%, with a lot of people taking their homes off the market and maybe planning to sell instead in the spring or summer of 2025, at least waiting until the first of this year to put their home on the market.
Right.
We have a few of those going on right now where owners just wanted to get past the holidays. So now you're asking me to kind of predict and look forward kind of into that crystal ball as to what's going to happen in 2025. And here's what I'm seeing. So the inventory really only fell off about 5% at the end of the year, but we had a 5-year high on the number of homes for sale. So it shifted in just a short 2-year period from a really stout seller's market to now much more of a buyer's market with a lot more inventory available. Affordability is challenged because prices have gone up. Now, that's one of the biggest surprises of 2024 to me is that home prices really didn't fall.
I know, that's so surprising when you have, the old supply and demand, when you have fewer buyers because of the high interest rates, you would think prices would come down, but they really didn't, did they?
I saw a lot of articles that said that home prices were resilient, that they were hanging in there, but then again, you and I saw the last few months of the year that there were homeowners that were definitely cutting their prices, saying, I'm done. I'm still going to make a lot of equity when I sell my home because my home went up 20, 30, 40% over a very, very short period. So some homeowners were cutting their prices, and we did see that begin to affect the comparable sales a little bit. In other words, Some people hanging on and just saying, I'll wait till next year. But maybe an equal or a little bit smaller number of families or homeowners who said, no, we're done here. We're
and
moving.
they may need to move. It may be a job transfer. There may be a need where they can't just stay.
So I think that is the big question for me in 2025. It doesn't look like, according to the Fed, Jerome Powell, the discussions, the 10-year Treasury discussion, all of these things are saying that really, if their rates go down at all this year, especially over the next 6 months, that it will be very little, and it's actually more likely they will stay the same or go up.
Yes.
So I think anyone waiting for rates to come down, I think that's a misnomer. I think that's just a misunderstanding of the market. And Cindy, I think the big question becomes when it gets to May, June, July, selling season really starts around April, is will the buyer demand come back? Will there be a lot more sellers that want to sell this year? Will the inventory go even higher? And will that cause home prices to begin to adjust downward a little more? I'm not talking 10 or 20%, but if things don't change and rates stay about where they are and more homes come on the market, I think pretty easily you could see a 3 or a 4 or 5 or 6% adjustment, possibly. And I think this is something we need to address in our coming shows so that our listeners know exactly what's going on, because that's why we do this show every week anyway, right?
Because we want our potential sellers to be informed. So if they are going to be planning to put their home on the market, they make a wise decision as to the timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. How about this colder weather coming up here over the next week? We kind of knew it was coming, didn't we?
We did. And boy, I'll tell you what, we have really been enjoying this nice weather. But hey, Christmas is over. New Year's is over. It's here, and I think we have to be ready for it. And we kind of want to think about how to prepare our houses. What are some of your tips?
Hey, that's a great question, because I was actually standing in the shower last night thinking that we need to get the jump start. Over the last couple of years, we ran for our rental properties and wanted to make sure that our property manager had enough of those little cones that go over your outside water faucet.
Those styrofoam.
But they ran out, and we had a hard time getting those. I would say cover your faucets. It looks like I saw a couple of the weathermen, whether it was dramatic or not, talking about pipe busting cold.
Yes.
And you and I know that happens when it gets below freezing and stays that way for 3 or 4 days. That is what I saw in the forecast coming up, where lows in the teens and highs definitely not reaching freezing or just barely below. It's time to prep. Take your water hoses off.
That's right. That's right.
Let's go put those freeze-proof protectors on all the outside faucets, especially on your north side of the home, where the wind can really blow. What about some other ideas, Cindy? You have talked about getting the fireplace cleaned and getting creosote out, and a lot of people might be turning to burning real wood. You want to tell everybody again about getting the fireplace clean and getting that creosote out?
One of our shows, we discussed that, and I was proactive and hired a chimney sweep to come out and clean our chimney. He was telling me that it's not as expensive right away, but if you wait till the middle of wood burning season, it's hard to get one out and their prices go up. So I would get right on.
For anybody that doesn't understand creosote, it's highly flammable. And we were told that when we burn a fire, we should burn it hot, burn it fast, leave the fireplace doors totally open until it's totally burned out, and all of that creosote is pulled up the chimney. And apparently it can really build up on the inside of the firebox if you're burning real wood. After you burn 1 rick or after 2 ricks? I remember him saying something about that.
And he also said, there are some things you can do as a homeowner. There's a creosote remover spray you can spray your firebox with and your wood before you burn each fire. And there's also some creosote logs that you can burn after maybe 3 or 4 fires. And I think you can buy those at Walmart. We've got a couple of those.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, be sure and have your furnace. Listen, if you haven't had your furnace serviced in a while, especially if your system's getting older, I think I would probably hop all over that right now.
Absolutely.
Because if you're sitting at home and it's below 30 degrees and your furnace quits, you got trouble. There's a lot of heat and air companies out there today. So if you haven't serviced your system and if you haven't done your filters, this would be a really good time to get that done. And then the last one, maybe go clean your dryer vent out so you don't have a dryer fire.
That's right. I just ordered a tool. It's interesting how it wasn't very expensive. I got it off Amazon, but you take that little screen that captures all the lint out and you clean that every time. But there's also a tool you can attach to your vacuum hose and vacuum deep into your dryer, because a lot of that lint is down in your dryer and it's very flammable.
I think I could use that for my belly button and probably for the insides of my shoes to get some of that lint out of there. So, well, this is House Talk, and we're here every week to help you with real estate news, give you something fun to talk about, and also to talk about just what's going on in our world, especially this cold weather coming up. So stay warm, and we'll be back again next week with House Talk. And if you ever have any questions for us, especially if you would like to sell your home, if you know somebody that would like to sell, or even someone looking to buy. Cindy, I had 2 great referrals over the last week from 2 different friends.
Yes.
One's got a military family moving in from Tokyo, and I'll be showing them some homes this weekend, at least to the wife. And then another friend that referred us, and his mother and sister are moving here from Florida this summer. We love sending you to dinner, a nice dinner. So if you just call and refer us, ask for Wally or Cindy at 330-3000. Or if you want to make it really simple, just go to KerrTeamReferrals.com and you'll hit our website. You can put in your name. We'll send you to dinner and tell us who you'd like to refer. We will roll out the red carpet, and I promise we'll take really good care of them.
That's right. And, if you're considering putting your house on the market and you're worried that prices may soften, you can check with us. We've got a multiple cash offer program. Tell us a little about that, Wally.
Yeah, we do. You can just go to WallyHasTheOffers.com and get as many as 5, 6, 7 cash offers for your home in as little as 24 hours. Now, this is not a scare tactic. We're not worried that prices are going to go down, like we talked about just a little while ago in the show.
Subtle.
It might be subtle, but there is a chance that the market could soften a little bit. And after as hot as it's been the last few years, I wouldn't be surprised. Anytime, call us for a consultation, and let's sit down and talk about what might be best for you and your family.
And that's at 330-3000.
See you next week here on House Talk.
Bye-bye.
This has been House Talk with Wally and Cindy Kerr, presented each week by Best Protect Roofing and Construction and by Chris Doak with Gateway Mortgage. Join us weekly to learn more about buying, selling, owning, and investing. And visit Wally Talks Houses to find all available podcasts and shows.